Well, the World Economic Forum has warned of devastating human consequences due to the pandemic and the war in Ukraine. It's forecast a further decline in economic activity, higher inflation, lower wages, and greater global food insecurity. And it's described these events as a vicious cycle, which could impact society for years to come. CGTN's Du Bin has been speaking to the managing director of the World Economic Forum, Saadia Zahidi.
What we find, of course, is that there are some very negative predictions around the future of economic activity across multiple regions. And so there is expected to be a fairly severe slowdown in the United States, in Europe, in a number of different parts of the world. Now, again, not surprising given everything that is going on. Next, we look at inflation. And this is where most of the world is expected to have much higher inflation than it did before, with a small exception around China and East Asia, where there is a much more positive outlook when it comes to inflation and far less dire predictions when it comes to rising prices. This is such a consequential moment. And as we are starting to come out of a situation where the world has been, many parts of the world have been in lockdowns, this is the moment to restart that engine of cooperation. And that is very much what this meeting hopes to be, to ensure that we can get to that positive future faster, get over the various fractures in the global economy much faster, and ensure that there are better outcomes for people and for planet.
Chinese President Xi Jinping called for openness and inclusiveness when he spoke in Davos Forum in January. And China always advocates to build a community for shared future for mankind. But we also see some people advocate decoupling and realigning of supply chain. Do you think we are really risking an economic Iron Curtain?
Yes, there is certainly at the moment, I think we can see the consequences of what happens when supply chains start breaking down. Now, one part of that is because of the pandemic, and then a second part is because of the current geopolitical conflict, and then, of course, the new decisions that multinationals are making. What we found is that clearly multinationals are now starting to think very differently about how they're going to take decisions. And they're starting to make those decisions based on geopolitical alliances rather than simply based on efficiency and resilience. And that, of course, will create risks in the future. We're seeing one of those risks already, which is the massive disruption to the food supply chain and the hunger and the food crisis that this is very likely to create. So it is absolutely critical for leaders to cooperate, to collaborate, and that is very much what we're trying to do here in Davos.
How do you see China and other Asian countries in the coming 3 years about their economy performance?
Let me answer that in a slightly complicated way. It depends. I think when you look at it relative to the performance of other regions, it's clear that growth in China and in East Asia will be relatively high compared to the past and compared to other regions. Inflation will be relatively low, or the disruption around inflation will be relatively low compared to other regions. But of course, relative to China's own past performance, there's of course a slowdown compared to the previously expected growth and slightly higher inflation than previously expected.